Hello, the Pioneer viewers. How are you doing? I hope you're healthy and well. As the Pioneer team, we continue to bring you our report on Russia-Ukraine war. In a moment, we will bring you the latest developments on the front line with a map. According to the latest reports, the activity on the front line has reached an extraordinary level. We see new border changes as a result of the mobility in the Robotin region, which have been taken about frequently in recent days. So in this, whose favor are these border changes? Of course, one might initially think that these border changes are in favor of the Russian army, but strange things are happening. So what is the latest situation on the front line? Let's examine it together. As the Pioneer team, we continue to bring you the developments regarding the Russia-Ukraine war. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so that you don't miss our daily map reports and reports and the agenda. You can also support me and my team by using the super thanks button below the videos. Let's start if you are ready, the Pioneer reports. We start with the latest developments on the Kherson front line. We can say that the fighting in the direction of Krynki has become traditional. As you know, Russian troops have been conducting an offensives here, and this process continued for a long time. The establishment and expansions of the Ukrainian army's dominance in the vicinity of Dnipro River greatly jeopardized the Russian army's dominance in the Crimean peninsula. This, of course, greatly increased the activity of the Russian army on the Kherson front line. However, it seems that the activity has not yielded any results and the Russian army has stopped its attacks. When we look at the latest reports, we observe that the only two armies are exchanging artillery fire. On the other hand, there are no notable changes or active conflict areas on the Kherson front line. We mentioned that the mutual shelling was taking place, but which areas were targeted in the shelling? According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted Kherson, Krynki, and Antoniivka. In contrast, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces hit Nova Kakhovka, and Olopristan. Let's continue by examining the latest developments on the Zaporizhia front line, which includes Robotyne, the critical region we mentioned at the beginning of our report. According to the latest reports, in the Robotyne section of the Zaporizhia front line, Russian troops supported by artillery and warplanes attacked Ukrainian positions in the western part of the town of Robotyne from the west and the south. Now there is a situation here. According to some sources, the Russian army managed to establish areas of control of the outskirts of the village during these attacks. This could be the case, because the shelling during the day was quite intense. The withdrawal of the Ukrainian troops seems possible. But then the area where the Russian troops retreated is more than the area where the Ukrainian army retreated. So this is what the sources claim, and this is the possibility here. The Russian army again applied the method it has been tried before, and deployment of all the troops to the front line without any support. Of course, there wasn't supporting during the last offensives, but this support, of course, is not enough in the moment when the Russian infantry units are engaged in one-on-one combat. Therefore, it is reported that the Ukrainian army has more room to advance. On the other hand, units of the Russian armed forces continued their offensives northwest of Verbov, trying to gain new areas of dominance so far, and the Ukrainian armed forces have put a pretty good defense. No border changes have been recorded. Let's continue with the artillery activity in the region. According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted Robotyne, Orekhiv, and Malaytokmakcha. On the other hand, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces hit Russian armed forces units at stations in Kopani, Novoprokopivka, Novopokrovka, Verbov, and Inchenkov. Let's continue by analyzing the latest developments on the Donetsk front line. According to the latest reports, there is a relative calm on the Donetsk front line after the Russian armed forces captured Avdiivka. As it is known, the Russian military's long-standing intent on the Avdiivka has been finalizing. Although some sources claim that Avdiivka is the last point in the Russian army's invasion plan, and this is not the correct view. Of course, strategically it is the last point, but the Russian military's dream advance is not limited to Avdiivka. According to recent reports, units of the Russian armed forces are exploring defense lines near Lastochkin. It seems that we will see an attack on this area west of Avdiivka in the coming days, and there are numerous reports that the Ukrainian armed forces units in this area are also in intensive preparation. In addition, units of the Russian armed forces continued to carry out offensive actions near Stepnoe with artillery support. However, the borderline is largely stable and there are no new areas changing hands between the two armies. Let's continue with the artillery activity in the region. According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted units of the Ukrainian armed forces stations in Novomikhailivka, Pobeda, Gorogorivka, Nevelskoye, and Orlovka. In turn, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces shelled units of the Russian armed forces stations in Marinka, Donetsk, and Makiivka. Let's continue by analyzing the latest situation on the Bakhmut front line. It is possible to say that the old days may come back in the Bakhmut because, according to open sources reports, after the fall of Avdiivka, some of the Russian troops were sent to Robotin, while some were sent to the Bakhmut front line. As it is known, Russian armed forces have been attacking Ukraine's forward lines on the Bakhmut front line for quite some time. While the northern part of these attacks has been somewhat successful, it is not possible to say the same thing about the southern part. This is because the Russian troops have been on doorsteps of Klishchivka and Andreevka for a long time. According to the latest reports, we observed that the Russian armed forces troops continue their offensives on the hills northwest of Klishchivka. It is still not possible to say that the progress has been made, and there is a strange persistence here. Just like Avdiivka, the offensives here has been going on for 5 months, but the whereabouts in the siege of Avdiivka, we saw the Russian army advancing from time to time. In Klishchivka, it's very strange that the Russian army is still attacking, despite the lack of any intents. But where areas in the siege of Avdiivka we saw the Russian armies advancing from time to time, in Klishchivka it's very strange then that the Russian armies is still attacking despite the lack of any incentive. On the other hand, we observe that the units of the Russian armed forces continue offensives operations near Ivonivsky and the Bogdanivka area. However, these offensives were largely unsuccessful. The demarcation line between the two armies remained stable, while Ukrainian troops continue to hold their positions. Let us conclude our report by looking at the latest developments on the Luhansk front line. According to the latest reports, the Russian armed forces continued their offensives on Belogorovka, Yampoliivka, Ternivka, Toboyelivka, and Sinkivka today. However, there were no changes in the borderline, and the Ukrainian army continues to hold its positions. So, what do you think? Do you think the Ukrainian army will succeed in the defense of Zaporizhia? Do you think that a new opportunity for a counteroffensive will arise? Or do you think that the Russian army will carry out further offensives on the Donetsk front line? Let me know in the comments, because I read and I care about all your comments.